My name is Bill Kelch. I am in the Adams Mark Hotel in Charlotte, North Carolina with Colonel Daniel J. Minahan, Jr., who is a career officer in the Army, regular Army officer, West Point graduate, and we are going to discuss his career in the Army, specifically with somewhat of a focus on World War II, of course, but also his entire military career. We are here at the Adams Mark Hotel. Oh, we are, by the way, at 11:27 a.m. on Eastern Time on the 19th of August, 1995. It's a Saturday. We're going to talk about World War II and Colonel Minahan's career. We are at the Adams Mark Hotel because Colonel Minahan is attending the 80th Infantry Division's annual reunion here in Charlotte, North Carolina. That's how we happen to be here in Charlotte. So we'll begin. Thank you. So I'm going to put this here. Could you just, Colonel, just tell us how'd you come to get in the Army? I mean, what was it how'd you come to be a soldier in the first place?
Well, when I was in high school, I was enlisted in the Massachusetts National Guard as a private and went to the 2nd Field Artillery. And I was a member of the National Guard all through high school, continued on when I entered Dartmouth College, spent 2 years at Dartmouth College. In the summer I went on active duty training with the Massachusetts National Guard.
This is Depression time.
That's right. And had been striving for an appointment to West Point, but those after high school. But in those years, there were no my congressman had no vacancy.
Mm-hmm. This is your congressman representing Lawrence, Massachusetts,
That's
where
right.
your home was.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Okay.
Then I was fortunate enough to be graduating as valedictorian of my high school class, and because I didn't get the appointment, both my high school principal and the family doctor, who were Dartmouth graduates, talked me into entering Dartmouth College and got me a scholarship, which was very fortunate because my family had no financial means to support me in college. I ended up there, and I also got a job waiting on table while I was a student. And suddenly at the end, in January of my sophomore year, I got this notification from the War Department that I had been appointed a second alternate and was directed to come down to Boston to take the mental and physical exam. I came down. In the meantime, I found out because of the close historical association between Dartmouth and West Point, because Colonel Sylvanus Thayer, the so-called father of the military academy, had graduated from Dartmouth before he entered West Point. Eventually went back to Dartmouth after he retired from the Army, established the Thayer School of Civil Engineering, which I was trying to go through if I finished at Dartmouth. Because of this relationship, if you were taking essentially engineering courses at Dartmouth and getting at least a B+ average, you were exempt from the mental examination. So I applied for that exemption and got it. Came down to Boston, just took the physical exam, went back up to Dartmouth, assuming that either the principal or the first alternate would pass the exam, and whatever my grade was made no difference. And I continued to finish my sophomore year at Dartmouth. And then in late May of my sophomore year, I get this telegram from the War Department telling me I had been appointed a cadet and report out there July 1. Well, I thought, I never saw this place called West Point. Maybe it's not what I thought it was going to be. Maybe after the summer of Beast Barracks, they'd kick me out anyway. So I signed up for the senior courses at Dartmouth to cover all bets. Went to West Point and ended up completing 4 years at West Point.
Okay, so you entered in the fall of which year?
Fall.
July 1st?
July 1st of 35.
35. So then you had to make you graduate
39.
39, yeah, okay. So you graduated from West Point in 1939.
Right.
Any particular noteworthy things that occurred during your, particularly noteworthy things that happened during your West Point years? I mean, stick in your mind, or anything that just sort of stands out as being unique to your West Point experience, maybe a little different from the average cadet's West Point experience?
Well, I was fortunate in having a good academic background, so I had little trouble with the academic course. That's the main stumbling block with most cadets, not the military training, but the academic side of it. And most of the dropouts, turnouts occur after the first September after the first semester of
Academic work.
yeah, plebe year in December.
Huh. That's interesting. I heard you talking about that yesterday when we talked briefly, and that was interesting to me. I would have expected that most of the dropouts I would expect most of them would be for just couldn't handle the hazing and the lifestyle.
No,
but that's not so.
No,
that's quite interesting to
not
me.
Not the physical part of it either. What was interesting in those days, how it is today, it was a revelation of the wide variation in the academic standards that existed among high schools in the United States to what they had learned and what they had accomplished. For example, one of the dropouts in my class came from a small town in Georgia where he had been the principal of the high school.
Oh, is that right? He was the principal,
Yeah.
and now he's going to West Point.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Was he older?
No,
Fairly?
he's about a year or so older than most of us, but
But he's belong.
of the high school.
Huh. How old can you be and still get to West Point? Is there? I mean, I'm sure there's an age maximum.
Yes, the minimum age is 16. The maximum for entrance, the maximum age is 23.
Oh, okay. So you have to get in pretty young, huh?
Yeah.
Just as a matter. Okay. So then you graduated in
39.
39,
Mhm.
and you were commissioned second lieutenant in
Field artillery.
field artillery. Was that your choice?
That's my choice.
And
yes.
why did you choose field artillery?
Well, they had become quite enamored of artillery when I was in the National Guard.
Were you? That's right.
Yeah.
You were an artilleryman in the Guard.
That's right.
Okay.
And in those days, you had your choice of branch, depending upon the vacancies in each branch, based upon your class standing.
Yes.
And it was sort of traditional that the top 10% chose engineers, whether they liked it or not, particularly if their father had been in the Corps of Engineers.
Is that where you were kind of expected to become an engineer, even if you didn't want it?
No, it was traditional for the top 10% to take Corps of Engineers.
They were sort of the elite, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Robert E. Lee went to the engineers, right?
Yeah. And so then the next choices were artillery, signal corps, ordnance. Then the bottom of the class got ranked into the infantry or the cavalry.
Cavalry would today be armor?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I was still high enough in the class to select engineers if I wanted to, but I chose field artillery.
Okay, so you could have gone either way, huh?
That's right.
And let's back up just a little bit. I asked you what took you into the military, and obviously West Point, Dartmouth.
Yeah.
You described that in detail. But you said even before that you had been in the National Guard.
Yes.
Was there what motivated you to even make that connection with the military? I mean, is it a family history, or you wanted the job, or what?
No one before me in my family was associated with the military in any way. I had developed an interest in history, and military history in particular. I also was a Boy Scout, became an Eagle Scout with all the merit badges and everything.
Yes, sir.
And spent all my summer in Boy Scout activities at camp, hiking, and out in the field, and things like that. And I enjoyed the outdoor life and the challenges that all.
So the National Guard seemed almost like a natural progression from the Boy Scouts in a
Well, I was
certain sense.
concurrently in the Boy Scouts and the National Guard, too.
Oh, is that right? Oh, you were in both simultaneously?
Yeah. And then,
Okay.
I was a waterfront director at a Boy Scout camp up in New Hampshire during the summer.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Was this a big culture shock for you when you? I should imagine when you went to West Point. Did you? You were how old then? Like about 20?
Yeah, no, I was
19, 20?
See, I was in 1935.
Yeah, you'd be 20, almost 20.
Almost 20.
Okay, 20. Okay, almost 21. Was this a culture shock for you? I should think it would be, but
No,
not really.
Kind of culture shock.
Okay.
It was a challenge. I admit that.
Was it? Did you didn't have a problem leaving home or anything like that?
No.
Family problems or?
No.
Okay. You were obviously trained at West Point. Graduated in 1939, and then did you go to some more training, some Corps-specific training in field artillery? Did you go from there to Fort Sill? Or
Not immediately. My
No?
first assignment was with the 7th Field Artillery, which was located up in Port Ethan, Allen, Vermont, which doesn't exist anymore, but it's long sold as surplus property. I was assigned as a battery executive of a firing battery, and spent the summer and the fall there of '39. When I first joined the artillery, it was still horse-drawn.
Uh-huh.
And then in late '39, we were all reorganized into truck-drawn artillery. And the 7th Field Artillery, which was part of the 1st Division, along with the 1st Division, was assembled down at Fort Benning, Georgia, camped out in the woods, where we were reorganized to become the 1st triangular division.
Mm-hmm.
It had been a square division, World War I organization. We were the experimental triangular division, the first big red one.
Okay.
And then we reorganized there, did some small unit training there, and after that winter was over, we went from Benning.
It's the winter of 1940.
39,
Oh, okay.
spring of 40, we all went, the whole division went down into Louisiana and Texas to be involved in the Louisiana maneuvers.
Yes, yes. Let me interject a question here, if I may, go back up just a little bit. Was this be a typical pattern to graduate from West Point and then go directly into report for duty in your branch?
That's correct.
Not go to some branch
Not initially,
school
Not initially, no.
first.
No.
Okay, now, correct me if I'm wrong. I think today a West Point grad would immediately go to a branch-specific school, wouldn't they? Like,
Not
infantry guy go to
Not
Fort
necessarily.
Benning and then...
It may be in some cases, but not necessarily so.
Okay, but your training was typical. I mean, it wasn't atypical because, in other words, they didn't say, well, you don't need to go to the basic artillery course because you've had so much experience with artillery in the Guard or anything like that.
No.
No. Okay, your fellow West Point graduates in that year went in the artillery would have done it as you did.
Likewise, those assigned to the infantry, to the engineers, to...
They went right to units and went to work, huh?
Right. Yes.
Okay. So, excuse me, you were talking about the triangular division at...
we were the experimental triangular division.
Fort Benning, or Camp Benning. Camp Benning, right?
Fort Benning.
Oh, it was Fort Benning?
Yeah, the infantry school. Then, after the Louisiana maneuvers were over, the 1st Division units reported back to their permanent posts, which were scattered all over New York and New England, back up to Fort Ethan, Allen. And then, this was in now 40, in this fall of 40, the 1st Division, all of 1st Army, was assembled down south for the Carolina maneuvers.
Okay. You're still a battery exec now.
That's right.
Sir. Okay.
And then after the Carolina maneuvers, we went back up again, and then I was sent to the Field Artillery School to take the battery officers course, which lasted 3 months.
Okay, and that's at Fort Sill?
Yes.
Fort Sill, okay.
And
battery officers course?
Yes.
Okay.
And when I returned, the 1st Division had been all assembled at Fort Devens, Massachusetts.
Right.
And had been officially triangularized. The 7th Field Artillery Regiment, which had consisted of 3 battalions, 1st, 2nd, 3rd Battalion, was reorganized into the 7th Battalion, the 32nd Battalion, and the 33rd Battalion. And I was made Battery Commander of Headquarters Battery of the 33rd Battalion.
Okay, you're now First Lieutenant? Captain.
I made a First Lieutenant 1 year after graduation from West Point.
Okay, so you're now a captain?
I'm a captain now, yeah.
Okay.
And
battery commander would normally be a captain.
yeah, right, correct. And then this is coming into the fall of 71. The 1st Division was all assembled at Fort Devens with the intentions of engaging in an amphibious operation.
Fall 41, right?
That's right, yeah.
Okay, at Fort Devens, okay.
We practiced climbing cargo nets and loading and unloading on land.
Uh-huh.
And the plan was we were to embark at the port of Boston and go down the Atlantic Ocean and make an amphibious landing off of Virginia Beach.
Okay.
And all of a sudden comes Pearl Harbor.
Right. That
And
changed everybody's plans.
It delayed our plans. We actually did go through the operation in January of 42. And then reported after the operation, motorized back up to Fort Devens. And in February of 42, the whole 1st Division was sent down to Camp Landing, Florida, for winter training.
Near Stark, huh?
Yeah.
It's a pretty stark place,
That's
too.
right, yeah. And while down there, in February of 42, the 1st Division was ordered to provide a cadre for 2 new divisions, the 76th and the 80th Infantry Divisions. And I was sent out on a cadre for the artillery of the 80th Division.
Right. Would this, just for curiosity, would that have been considered a good duty or bad duty or don't really care duty? You know, in other words, would that kind of assignment be looked upon favorably by a person like you in 1942? Say, oh boy, I get to be part of the cadre to establish a new division, or would you say, oh, blast, I don't want to go over there?
Well, the only thing was you had to leave the outfit you'd been with.
Okay.
But
there's a certain emotional attachment to the Big Red One.
That's right,
And
correct.
you're going to lose that, and you don't like that. Okay.
But career-wise, it could even be helpful.
Okay.
And a cadre, a lot of people don't understand. You don't make up a cadre of the people you want to get rid of. An outfit that's directed to furnish a cadre has to prepare 2 lists, A and B, of equal talent, and they don't know which one they're going to send out, which one they're going to keep.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you can. If you want to put all the people you want to lose on one list, fine, because we'll pick the other list.
That's right. That's right. You don't know which list is going to be sent out and which you're going to keep. So,
Okay.
so you divide the talent.
Right. Yeah, you don't put all your 8 balls on one list.
No. You don't know which list you're going to keep. See?
Well, that's a pretty good system, you know.
Yeah. Because later on, the idiot had to furnish a cadre for the 106th Division. Same,
Okay.
same thing.
So where did you go to do that now?
Well,
Set up the
artillery,
80th Division.
the artillery part of the cadre was sent to Fort Sill, Oklahoma. The infantry part was sent to Fort Benning for 1 month training and indoctrination in how to prepare to organize and activate a new division.
In other words, you got some training in how to be cadre, so to speak.
That's right.
Okay.
And we'll get to the first didn't provide a total artillery cadre. Other divisions provided units too. We all met at Fort Sill. All of us were part of the cadre, both officers and enlisted men.
Uh-huh.
And spent a month there. First of all, getting to know our new division artillery commander, who at that time was Colonel Horace L. McBride, getting to know each other and getting to know what our basic assignments were going to be in this new division. And after that month, we reported to Camp Forest, Tennessee, which was the place selected for activation of the 80th Division.
Near Tullahoma.
In Tullahoma. And activation day was the 15th of July, 1942. And we got prepared to receive all these fillers, as we call them, those who have been drafted,
Right.
and been designated to report to the 80th Division.
Now, when they reported to you, had they been trained?
No.
Not at all. In
No.
other words, you gave them their basic training.
That's right, yes. And my job as Division Artillery S1, was Chief of Personnel, was to review all the Form 20s which indicated what the civilian background of these people were, and to equate the civilian background with the military requirements. I am military occupation specialty, as we call it, MOS.
Right. Okay. Now, these soldiers would have said that you deliberately put them somewhere that had nothing to do with their civilian training,
No,
right?
that's not true.
I know it's not, but I mean,
Yeah.
you hear that all the time.
Yeah.
I was a cook in civilian life, so they made me a truck driver. You know, but that's you actually did go to a lot of trouble to try to
Oh, yeah.
fit a round peg in a round hole.
Make sure that every
Uh-huh.
battery got an equal cut of the pie.
Right.
And what you described was unusual because we endeavored to match civilian occupation with military requirements,
Right.
assuming the transition would be much faster and we'd be making maximum use of the talent available. Well, interesting enough, we had people like you had been a cook, were mad as hell because I'd made a cook. Said, I was a cook all my life. I joined the Army to be a machine gunner. So we had a guy like that. We made him a machine gunner.
Is that right?
Yeah, or whatever else he was in civilian life. He didn't want to be in the military. He wanted to do something different.
So you tried to satisfy him too, huh?
That's right. Yeah.
Well, that's good. Okay.
On the other hand, we had the guy who, because he had been, say, a radio technician in civilian life, was mad as hell because his talent was not being used in the military. He had
You can't satisfy everybody.
That's right.
Okay. Just let me ask you by way of background here. Were there a lot of materials available to you, written materials, you know, you got to set up a rifle range, how to set up a rifle range, how to basic drill. Of course, you came from West Point. My goodness, you had drill, so you know that.
Yeah.
But you know, here's the cadre.
Yeah.
You and other officer COs, and you've got a whole herd of people coming here, and you got to make an infantry division out of them.
Yeah.
Did you have a lot of manuals and stuff?
Plenty of field manuals.
Okay, and were they pretty good? Would you say they were pretty good?
Yeah,
by and large.
See, all the artillery field manuals have been prepared by the artillery school. All the infantry field manuals by the infantry school and the signal corps and so on and so forth. Those are libraries of these field artillery manuals.
Okay, so the Army then you would say was ready for the war,
Oh, yeah.
at least in that sense.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And these manuals are being used in peacetime for training too.
Okay. Would you, and maybe I'm getting ahead here a little bit, but in general, would you describe your personal training, starting even in the Guard in West Point, and then down at Fort Sill in the Battery Officers Course and so forth? Would you generally characterize it as meaningful, useful, applicable
Oh, yes.
to your subsequent experience
Oh,
in the war itself?
Oh, yeah, very much so.
It was good,
Yes,
by and large.
yeah.
I mean, you characterize it that
Oh,
way.
yes.
Okay. Were there deficiencies in it, or that spring to mind?
Well, there might be occasionally there'd be some things found a little archaic or not parallel with you found in real life experience, but for the most part they were very well written. For example, I mentioned all these field manuals. FM-40 was the field artillery gunnery manual.
Right.
That covered everything pertaining to field artillery gunnery. Very well prepared, but every year it's reviewed at Fort Sill to update it if it's not current, things like that.
Okay. I just wonder, again, this is not necessarily part of your experience, but I wonder, like, I should imagine the cavalry versus tankers. I should think they must have been in real turmoil, weren't they, at that
Well,
time? The horse to truck. Well, to some extent, even the artillery, huh? The horse to truck transition, horse to tank transition.
In artillery, it was not any great problem. In fact, the best thing that happened was getting rid of the horses.
Just better to pull it with a truck. Huh?
Well, I'll say taking care of horses in combat is, even in peacetime, is an all-day job. They have to be fed and nursemaid and everything else.
Yes.
A truck, you have to maintain a truck, but you can do it in an hour and then park the truck, but you can't do that with a horse.
Okay.
But the big problem psychologically with getting these old horse cavalry guys to go into armor, a lot of them fought that, and they actually, my own roommate at the academy who had chosen horse cavalry because he loved horses, couldn't stand anything mechanical. When he went to joined the 1st Cavalry Division, and when that was transitioned into being an infantry division, he transferred to infantry rather than
be a tanker. Huh?
rather than being a tanker.
Huh. That's interesting. Huh. Did you? And again, this is kind of a general question, like I asked you about training in general. Did you have any? Okay, you're a young man from Lawrence, Massachusetts. You go to Dartmouth, and then you go to West Point. When you went to West Point, and then of course subsequently, did you have any major impressions of people that you met, like from other parts of the country? You know, you got to West Point.
Yeah.
Geez, here's this guy from South Georgia and another guy from South Texas, and you get some impression of people from different parts of the country and how you fit together. What do you have any general comments there about how that affected you, or did it broaden your horizons?
Oh, definitely, it intrigued me. Meeting
you were intrigued.
very much intrigued, and learning how they lived and how they thought, and I found that very fascinating.
Okay, was there any particular incidents that or anything that sticks in your mind along those lines? You just couldn't believe that this guy from the Bayou country in Louisiana did things this such and so way, or anything like that?
I was born and raised a city boy in a mills town, Lawrence, Mass, but I spent some time in my youth working on farms in New Hampshire. I knew what farm life was like and what kind of work involved and things like that. And anybody who was a farm boy from some other part of the country, I was intrigued by what farm life was like for him. But it didn't make any difference to me. I was just interested more in what this country is made up of, what it consisted of.
Okay. So let's see now. Let's get back to where we're in our chronology. Where are we in our chronology? Let's see.
We've activated the 80th Division.
Right. Yeah, we're at Camp Forest, Tennessee,
Yeah.
near Tullahoma. You've got the 80th Division,
Yeah.
and we're about middle of 42, right? Is that right?
Yeah, we're coming to the end of, by the December of 42, all what we call the individual and small unit training had been accomplished. That's
Okay.
at the squad level. And then in the spring of 43,
Yes.
we started having large unit training, battalion, and my regiments on exercises in the area around Camp Forest. And then in the summer of 43, we were involved in 3rd Army maneuvers, which covered all of Tennessee.
Okay, 3rd Army maneuvers, okay, all over Tennessee.
I'm
Who's the commanding general of the 3rd Army
That
then?
was the famous Ben Lear.
Ben Lear, okay. I'm ashamed of myself, but I'm not even familiar with him.
Well, he was quite a character.
He's a lieutenant general,
Yes.
Army commander.
Yeah.
Okay, how was he character?
Well, he was a good disciplinarian, but he had there was one incident that the news media took up. He was caught out in the golf course, a place in Tennessee, with playing golf with some civilians, including some ladies, and he infantry platoon on a high captain marched by this golf course, and he caught sight of, didn't know who this guy was, but they were all yelling yoo-hoo to him, waving their hands, and Lear sent us 8 to find out who this platoon was and who the platoon commander was, and then when he had identified them, he ordered them to take a full march with full back that night out in the woods and back again. And he was then, ever since that time, always known as Yoo-Hoo Ben.
Okay, so these maneuvers were when now, did you say? End of
Summer of
summer of 43.
43. And we went all through the hills and mountains of Tennessee, collecting gigabytes. And, we, in those days, the big antidote for gigabytes was nail polish, and we bought up all the nail polish for miles around in Tennessee. And in the fall of 43, the division was ordered to Camp Phillips, Kansas, which is a training area about 3 miles outside of Salina, Kansas.
Okay.
And we were only there 2 months. Our division commander, by this time, originally Colonel McBride, and then Brigadier General McBride was the division artillery commander. And after the maneuvers in Tennessee, the division commander was relieved and transferred down to the Panama Canal Zone, and McBride became the division commander. And
Are you still a captain here? Or have you gotten promoted?
No, I'm a major.
You're a major now, yeah, okay.
And I'm commander of the 314th Field Artillery by now.
Oh, okay, okay.
And then after 2 months at Camp Phillips, General McBride, because of the conditions here, we could get no training in. Particularly, couldn't get any artillery practice in because of constant dust storms. You couldn't see out there to see what you're shooting at. Asked Washington to find us a new training area. And it turned out to be the Desert Training Center in December of 43.
Camp Irwin? Out there near Barstow?
No, Yuma.
Yuma?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. The division was ordered to
Yuma, Arizona, huh?
Yuma for the Desert Training Center.
Okay.
We pitched our tents out there in the desert and started maneuvering out there, and also artillery service practice. In fact, we could get in realistic coordination between artillery and infantry there, because we would select targets out in front and train the infantry on how to follow up close artillery fire.
Huh. So your time in Kansas was kind of wasted then,
That's
was
right.
it? Yeah. Okay. Boy, life in Yuma, Arizona, in tents must have been pretty tough.
No, it wasn't that bad. This is winter.
Okay, this is when now? Like
December. We were there from December of '43 until April of '44.
Okay, so you were in Kansas a very short time.
That's right.
Like what, a month or 6 weeks or something?
6 weeks.
Okay.
And then out in the while we were out in the desert, we took the artillery ground force tests. It was a series of 3 tests involving different phases of artillery firing organization. One where you have no maps at all, and build up your map. One where you operate from aerial photos and develop your firing charts from that. And the third one was amassing of 5 division artillery together collectively, all 4 battalions. And one thing I want to say about that, the tests were designed by General McNair, who at that time was Chief of Army Ground Forces and also an artilleryman.
This is Leslie McNair?
That's right.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. And he came out to witness when we were having the tests. And what I'm proud of is the fact my battalion made the highest score, combined score, in those 3 tests of any artillery battalion in the whole U.S. Army.
Oh, wow. Well, congratulations. That's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah.
You were somewhat atypical, weren't you? Be commanding a a battalion as a major?
Yeah.
Yep.
The reason why was there was no position vacancy. The person who was holding the slot, a lieutenant colonel, the reserve officer, was not considered qualified, and he is reassigned to division headquarters as an assistant to Division G2. And I was filling that slot without rank, without promotion possibility, because all the slots were filled. But after we went through these tests,
yes,
and General McNair observed what happened, he turned to General McBride and says, "Why is Minahan only a major?" And McBride explained to General McNair, because there's no vacancy position. It's filled. And a week after the tests were over, General McNair went back to Washington, and the division got a telegram order promoting Minahan to lieutenant colonel.
Oh, so you got some personal attention from General McNair then?
That's right,
Oh,
yeah.
that's quite an honor. It's quite an infantry. An artilleryman. Yeah. There's a McNair Hall at Fort Sill.
That's right,
as we speak, isn't there? Sure.
Correct. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So then, what happened then? You said you were at Yuma until April '44.
Yeah. In April.
And now you're a lieutenant colonel, April '44,
Yeah.
commanding the 314th Field Artillery Battalion. Okay.
The division was ordered to Fort Kilmer, New Jersey.
And you knew what that meant, right?
Yeah, right. We started to be processed for going overseas.
Right.
And we got reorganized there. We had a 10% overstrength in both officers and men for training purposes, and we had to slough off that 10% at Camp Kilmer, and get ready to go overseas.
So what happened to the 10%, just for curiosity?
A lot of them were sent over as individual replacements.
Oh, okay.
Are assigned to other divisions in the state.
Just let me back up just a little bit, if you don't mind. What happened to Camp Forest then? Did they organize another division after you moved out of there? Did they use that site to organize another division?
Yes.
Okay, they didn't just let it sit there.
No. No.
Okay.
I forget what the other division was.
But the facilities that you had been using were then used to
form another division.
Okay. Excuse me. So now we're Camp Kilmer in April of, or is it May now? '44.
This is April and May.
Okay.
And actually through June. And then the 1st of July, we started loading up, being processed to load up on the Queen Mary. And we sailed on the 4th of July to Europe.
Oh, wow. Very maybe an emotional day to
Yeah.
embark for the war to defend the United States
Yeah.
of America. You know, leave on the 4th of July. Okay.
And with the whole division plus a lot of other separate corps units and support units shared the ship with us.
Mm-hmm.
About 24,000 aboard.
Okay, so you went to Southampton or something? Or where'd you go?
We were around. We went to the north, around Scotland, and came into Southampton,
Uh-huh.
and then disembarked and moved to this British concentration area in England.
This is when now did we arrive there?
We arrived there in it was about a 10-day trip.
So it'll be right in the middle of July,
That's
huh?
right.
14th, 15th, falling
Yeah.
in there somewhere.
Yeah, right.
44.
Yeah.
Okay.
And while there, we drew all brand new equipment that had been in storage in England for a year or so. In case the artillery had to get all the artillery weapons and also all the rifles out of Cosmoline and clean them off. And the artillery, we took them to a British artillery range in Wales to calibrate them. And we
Okay.
came back to our base camp and finally got orders.
Where was the base camp now?
I can't remember the name of that town.
It's near where? I mean,
It was in southern England, near the various ports that we used to cross the channel.
okay.
We loaded up on LSTs and got ready to go across.
Okay. Let me ask you a question here now. Okay, you talked about you participated with the 3rd Army maneuvers,
Yeah.
Tennessee.
Right.
That was when you were still at Camp Forest.
That's right.
And then you moved on to Kansas and then to Arizona.
Yeah.
But the 3rd Army didn't move. Where was the 3rd Army?
Well, the Third Army.
I guess what I'm saying is, where was the 3rd Army in the States, and then when did it become the 3rd Army in England? When you left England, did you leave England as part of the 3rd Army?
No.
Oh no, you just left as a division?
That's correct.
Oh, okay. So do you know when the 3rd Army actually was deactivated, if you will, in the States?
Roughly about.
Activated in the
Roughly
European?
about. I don't know exactly, but roughly about in the spring of 43, because we were one of the last divisions to go through the Desert Training Center.
Okay.
The very last one was the 102nd Division.
Okay. But when you did that, you were still part of the 3rd Army?
No.
No, okay.
Third Army, by that time, all these activated divisions had gone through their initial training, and
Yes.
the Third Army was deactivated. General Lear was retired.
He was retired as opposed to he retired?
Yeah, he never went overseas.
Why is that? I mean,
Too old.
oh, is that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. He was...
And well, I think he was given command of one of the Army areas, which is administrative headquarters.
Okay.
Can't
I'm sorry.
remember exactly, but
Okay. Just for curiosity, what was considered too old then? Was it really a function of age per se, or was it somebody's evaluation of your fitness and so forth?
Well,
and health and...
all three: age, physical condition, I guess your mental adjustment to the. He's a product of World War I.
Right.
Because the guy who had the say on who was going to be generals, all the way down to brigadier generals, was Marshall.
George Marshall, he make that kind of decision?
That's right. He made all those decisions.
Yeah. And I suppose if you were, no matter how fit you were, if you were a disgruntled rider of horses, you weren't going to get command of a
That's right.
of a division of tanks.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you embarked for the third. Well, when you embarked from England,
Yeah.
the Third Army was already on the continent,
No.
or it was still in England?
No, Third Army did not exist.
Did not. Oh, it did not
Had
exist.
this,
Okay.
had this fake army.
Right.
Patton headed up.
And they were playing games with
Playing
German
games
intelligence,
and,
right?
and transmitting. Army was activated, and we were told we were part of Third Army.
Okay, and this is like when
This would be about
August
the,
something. August.
I don't have the exact dates in mind. I have to look up my notes.
Okay.
It's about say roughly 8th and 9th of July. 7th,
No, no.
8th, 7th,
August.
August, excuse me.
Okay. Okay.
August, right.
Okay. So you were one of the you were one of the divisions that comprised the initial cadre. Is that the right word?
Initial units.
Units that formed the Third Army.
Correct.
In other words, you were right there at the get-go.
Yes.
When Patton took over the Third Army,
Yeah.
you were there,
Yeah.
ready for it.
And-
Okay.
And the 4th Armored Division, which had already been ashore and part of the operation, they were supposed to have gone west and taken the that Brest Peninsula. They were re-shifted over to become part of Third Army, and we were paired off for most of the war with the 4th Armored Division. The team was normally an infantry armored division in combat.
Okay. An infantry division and an armored division paired.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Right. So, I don't know. I don't think we need to go into in great depth into military.
Yeah.
Here to there, but could you just kind of very, very generally describe the movement of 80th Division? I know I haven't seen your maps, the trail of the 80th Division, and so forth. Just kind of just generally describe the 80th Division movement during the war, and I know you ended in.
Well,
in May of '45, you were in what, northwestern Austria?
Yeah.
North central Austria.
Yeah.
Just kind of describe your path through.
Well, the first thing was,
Please.
we were part of the avalanche breakthrough.
All right.
Came down south, bypassing most of the German forces, which were waiting for the invasion to come further northwest from us.
Oh, this is an interesting point. They were still thinking that this was a diversion.
Yes.
That Normandy was still a diversion.
That's right.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And that was, well, actually, the German High Command, particularly Rommel,
Right.
could see what was going on, but Hitler wouldn't
Thought
let-
it was a diversion.
Yeah.
Even as late as.
wouldn't let him pull all of his armored divisions down to stop the invasion.
Okay. So even, D-Day was the 6th of June, and even 2 months later,
Yeah.
they're still thinking that Normandy is a
Just
diversion.
Diversion, right.
Oh, wow. I knew they thought that for a while. I didn't know they
Yeah.
thought it for that long.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then, after the avalanche breakthrough,
Right.
Third Army came down and hooked around to the east, and continued east, and then hooked up to the north toward Argenton, while
Right.
the British were coming down from Feliz.
Okay.
The 80th Division ended up having its first major battle at Argenton.
Argenton.
First commitment to battle. Where we got baptism of fire.
Okay.
That's what it's all about. And
And that was your first personal experience,
yes,
okay, with
yeah,
combat, essentially.
Yeah, well, prior to that, we were just running into delaying actions. It just didn't mean anything.
Okay.
But by this time, the Germans realized what was happening, and they were trying to pull back out of this net that was cutting them
Yes.
off. And we were holding the south end of the net. And that was our first major battle. And we acquitted ourselves well.
This is at Argenton.
Yeah.
Okay. This was serious here.
Yeah. And actually, for that battle, we were not part of Third Army. We were part of First Army, because the boundaries were. First Army was responsible for that particular
Oh,
piece of.
so you were
job.
detached, officially detached?
Yeah.
Who's that? Is that Luther Hodges? Or who's
Uh,
that?
No, that was
Not Luther, Hodges.
Wait a minute. It was Bradley who was commander.
Oh, is that right? Oh, okay.
Before 12th Army Group was.
Oh, so he was an Army commander at that time. That was Bradley? Okay.
And then after the battle was over, we were reassigned back to 3rd Army and made a march to the east.
Okay.
Going through a series of delaying actions, trying to get over blown up bridges and cross rivers and canals until we finally got to our second major battle, which was crossing the Moselle River.
At whereabouts?
From hold on a button a second. Up north.
Crossing the Moselle near Nancy.
North of Nancy.
North of Nancy in France. Okay.
Yeah.
So you got across, and that was quite a. That was tough getting across that river.
Any river crossing operation, if opposed, is a tough operation. It's a combination of amphibious and a lot of patrolling, scouting, and
naturally, the nature of the thing is in favor of the defender as opposed to the.
River crossing is one of the toughest military operations you can undertake. If it's opposed.
Did you have good equipment?
Oh yeah, we had it
to do that.
Yeah, but it was well defended by the Germans, experienced Germans, and it took us a week to get across.
How would you? I guess this is, since you just brought up well defended by the Germans and so forth. It's probably as good a time as any. How would you generally characterize? And I know this is an overbroad question, but the German soldier, their technical ability, their fierceness, if I may use that term, their
majority of them are real professionals.
Okay, you would characterize it as a very professional army.
That's right, yeah. Okay. Particularly their armored divisions.
Okay.
And a lot of their infantry divisions. We were not pushing kids around. We were up against real soldiers.
Okay. And interestingly, were the most of these fellows on the German side, by that late in the war, were in fact
motivated,
experienced soldiers?
Oh, yes, yeah.
I mean, they didn't have a lot of inexperience. I mean, they weren't pushing men forward who were untrained.
No,
and so
no.
These were
the two divisions we were opposing had been brought up from Italy.
Okay.
And then other divisions that we encountered, it was a new division. The cadre was from the Russian front.
Okay.
So they were well trained. They knew what they were doing, knew how to handle their weapons, and their artillery. We were superior in guns, but what they had, they knew how to use.
Did you have much personal? Obviously, you were taking prisoners of war here. Did you have much personal contact with many prisoners of war? Did you have much to do with prisoners of war?
Yeah.
And any comments there? I mean, did you form any impressions of them, or have any incidents relating to
the ones that I talked to, particularly field grade officers? And by the way, I forgot to mention. I had pretty good knowledge of German. I studied German for 2 years while I was at Dartmouth.
Okay.
And I was able to communicate quite a bit with them.
So you actually conversed fairly frequently with prisoners?
Yeah.
Was that part of your job?
No,
to
not
like
part
debrief or anything?
No, not part of my job. It was just when we overran some or took some.
You'd speak to them, officers and enlisted as well. And, okay. Any interesting anecdotal things that came out of that? You know, you met somebody who's was a cousin of somebody from Milwaukee, or that kind of stuff.
No, I didn't do that. The one thing getting later on, you said get through this thing as fast as possible. From the Moselle, we went east, already to go through the Siegfried Line when the Battle of the Bulge occurred, and the Third Army was turned around and go north.
Right.
7th Army took over our territory. 7th Army had landed in southern France and come up north.
Oh, would they come from where, Marseille or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the 3rd Army attacked the Bulls on the southern flank. And then after the Bulls were reduced, we made our first crossing into Germany from Luxembourg, crossing the Auer River.
Okay, excuse me. You were involved in relieving the troops at Bastogne.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
No, not. Well, the 3/8 Infantry was attached to the 4th Armored Division
Okay.
for the breakthrough at Bastogne.
Okay.
It is not mentioned in history books because the 4th Armored Division took all the glory for it, but the 3/8 Infantry was supporting them, and actually the 318th Infantry men attached to the 4th Armored Division that made the first physical contact.
Okay, and they were they were a detached part of the 80th Division.
That's right, yeah.
Okay. That's it. But the 314th was not.
No, none of the artillery was.
Okay, but you moved in that general direction.
No, we went north. We struck north. We first cleared out Luxembourg City, and then went up to Echterbrook and cleared that out, and cleared out all the way to the boundary between Luxembourg and Germany.
Okay.
And then when the bulge was reduced after Bastogne, the attack started again. We went east. We crossed from Luxembourg into Germany.
Okay.
And
what is that, around Aachen or something? Is that?
no, Aachen was north.
It's north, yeah.
That was
Okay.
that was First Army territory. Aachen.
Okay.
And we crossed from the Auer River, which is the boundary between Luxembourg and Germany, went north, and we eventually ended up capturing Bitburg.
Right.
That's why we were mad as hell about all the hullabaloo when President Reagan went to
Okay.
Bitburg, because most of the guys buried in that cemetery, we put them there.
Okay, so you didn't think he should have gone there?
No, it was perfectly right for him to go there.
Oh, it was perfectly all right
Yeah,
for him to go there.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that was my thinking at
Yeah.
the time. I didn't see, but
Well,
the
they made
controversy was a lot of Waffen SS there or
Because
something.
there's some SS buried there too.
Yes, okay.
But what the hell, they had to bury them someplace. There's no reason for not going to a ceremony in which most of those buried there were a part of the regular German army.
Right. Okay.
It was just like not going to a cemetery because some criminals have been buried there. See?
Right, okay. Yeah. All right, so you went to Bitburg, and then...
Then we pulled back and hooked right and continued east toward Trier.
Right.
And we
Yes.
bypassed Trier and were advancing along the Autobahn toward Kaiserslautern.
Right.
And this is where my knowledge of German came in handy. I was out,
Kaiserslautern. Huh?
you know,
Okay.
I was going along, progressing along the Autobahn this day, and I was up with my reconnoitering for advanced gun positions, trying to find artillery positions off the Autobahn. And I had with me just my Jeep driver, and my radio operator, my battalion S2, and went up this trail, a dirt road, to get up on the what looked like flat terrain above.
Yes.
And this is about 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So we got up the top of the hill and going over. In the setting sun, I saw silhouetted a flash of rifles, and all of a sudden realized it was a platoon of German infantry that had us covered. And so I said to my people in the Jeep, I said, "Don't reach for a thing, let me handle this." And I stood up in the Jeep, and I started using all the crude German swear words I could think of. go back to my Boy Scout days. I was the only Irish Catholic in an all-German Boy Scout troop.
Uh-huh.
And these kids had to go to German school one night a week, and I picked up what you call street German from them.
Yes.
Not the German I learned at Dartmouth.
Right.
And I yelled at these guys, man, why the hell weren't they down on the Autobahn going back to the rear with the rest of the PWs? Did they know that they were found up here after night, they're going to be shot? Well, then when I said, who's the platoon sergeant? All of a sudden, this guy came down front and he saluted me, and I saluted him. I said, get your soldiers lined up here and march them down. He yelled to them. They all came down, lined up, and dropped their rifles. And I told my S2, Mike Hennigan, I said, Captain Hennigan, march these PWs down and right to the rear. And then when they had disappeared, my radio operator and I took all these rifles, stuck them in the spokes of the Jeep wheels to bend them, and then threw the bolts out and threw them in the bushes because we had no room to carry them back. And then Hennigan came back about 15 minutes later and said, gee, if they don't understand any German, when they got down to the highway, they were mad as hell when they looked around. There's nobody in sight. But very fortunately, a column of trucks of the 3/8 infantry came by, and they saw these guys, and they started pretending they were going to shoot them, aiming their rifles at them, so they continued to the rear.
Boy, that was some quick thinking there, huh?
That's what...
Save your neck. Could have gotten shot right then and there, eh?
I call that bluff. I knowledge the street German worked. If I talked to them in classical German, they would probably laugh their heads off and show us.
Ooh, man. So, now we're...
We
Where are we now?
continue east.
From Bitburg.
Kaiserslautern.
I'm sorry, yeah. Kaiserslautern.
Then we up down on the Rhine River at Mainz.
Yes.
And the division eventually crossed the Rhine after getting a whole bunch of engineering equipment to put in the longest pontoon bridge that was ever made in Europe. The division engineer was a West Point classmate of mine, Colonel L.W. McCollum, who supervised the construction of the bridge we got to get across the Rhine. There was not much opposition on the other side after the initial infantry attack going over in assault boats. And we crossed in order from Mainz to Wiesbaden. And from Wiesbaden, the division got on the Autobahn and went headed directly north, and eventually ended up attacking and capturing the city of Kassel.
Okay.
And that was actually our last major combat confrontation. From there we continued east all the way to Bitburg. And
Bitburg? Not Bitburg. Bamberg. Bamberg?
No.
What?
See, what was the... Anyways, we're a very short distance from Leipzig.
Okay.
And we could have continued on to Berlin with no trouble at all, but we were ordered to halt.
Okay.
Command, the order came from Eisenhower.
Right.
Berlin was Russian territory.
Right.
Because all the Germans were inviting us to come to Berlin before the Russians got there.
Yeah, they wanted to be liberated by the Americans and not the Russians. Yeah.
And because that was
liberated. That's probably the wrong word.
Well,
conquered.
Right. Yeah. But,
whatever you want to call it.
That was
occupied.
That was the agreement made at Yalta that we very foolishly stuck to. We should have gone ahead, taken Berlin, and said to the Russians, "Sorry, you weren't here," and we had to get rid of these German military units.
You darn people fell behind schedule, huh?
Yeah. And if we'd done that, there'd never been the Cold War problems afterwards. We could have set up a boundary. We would have complete access to Berlin. We wouldn't have to go through the putting up an airlift and all that sort of stuff. Anyways, we were stopped. We were directed to come back and turn south and go down and take Victoria, Nuremberg.
Nuremberg, yeah. Okay.
and that wasn't very difficult. That was pretty much ready to be captured. And we continued south to take Regensburg.
Yes.
And
Okay.
then from there continued down into Austria. By this time there was no opposition. We get down into Austria, and we're, as I told you, down in Volkerburg and just west of Linz, where we made contact with the Russians. And my artillery battalions at Niederholzheim on VE Day, that's what we were.
Okay.
And then we were there for about a week. And then...
Oh, excuse me, but how did people react on VE Day? In other words, was there like a big celebration? Everybody threw their helmets in the air and got drunk, or what? In general, what was the reaction of everybody?
Oh, just a sigh of relief. Just like after being out for a month on maneuvers in the hills of Tennessee.
Oh, just boy, I'm glad that's over with.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Now, was the Pacific Theater hanging over everybody's head in their minds? Well, this is over, but then again, maybe it isn't. Maybe we're going to get on a boat and a ship and go to.
Nobody was thinking that far ahead.
No.
It was just relaxing. The soldiers went trout fishing and things like that, and we're having fish fries and cleaning up weapons. That's always necessary when you have nothing else to do, clean up the trucks and weapons. And then, about a week after we'd been there, we were my battalion, and the 2nd battalion, I think it was 1 battalion of 3/8 infantry, was made task force with the, which was headed up by the 3rd Cavalry Group, to go back west, just south of Lake Gemund, and go up over the Alps, and down into the big valley in southern Austria. It's just north of Italy.
Okay.
The reason why was intelligence of Europe, Eisenhower's headquarters, had got word that Tito was planning to come up from Austria and make a land grab in Austria to get in on the occupation. And there was a big vacuum there because the British 8th Army was so slow in coming up from Italy, taking time out for tea, I guess. And, there's a huge part of the German 5th Panzer Army there looking for somebody to surrender to except Russians.
Oh, okay. And you didn't want somebody to be Tito.
All right, yeah.
Okay.
So,
is that thinkable? I mean, did Tito have enough military force that he could, in any way, take the surrender of...
Well, he could have occupied the area. That's the main thing. He was looking for a land grab.
Okay.
So,
and this is the area around Trieste? Is this when he was...
It's north of Trieste.
Okay. Okay, up there in the mountains?
Yeah.
Up in
So we went on this march. It was quite an experience. Go from the flat plain down there along Lake Gemund. There's still snow up there, and the roads were icy. A couple of the tanks of the 3rd Cavalry Group slipped on the ice and fell off into the ditches. I managed to get all my trucks up there without any difficulty.
Well, this is really, you're really at elevation then.
Oh, yeah, we're up at
because, I mean, you're in May, so you got to be pretty high elevation.
Oh, yeah, we're up about 7,000 or 8,000 feet.
Okay.
And we finally got up there in a small town called Tweng, T-W-E-N-G, in the middle of the Alps, which where I established my headquarters. And we got organized there. And then I, with my intelligence officer, got my jeep and went down the valley ahead to see if we could find any gun positions, because up there in the mountains there's no decent gun positions. Hardly any place you could leave the road. We got down to this valley about 10 miles below, and we started running into these Germans who have all lined up and formed a big camp with all the truck parks, gun parks, guards around, saluting us as we went by, and I returned the salute, ignored them. Finally got down beyond them, and made contact with a British colonel who would finally come up from the advance party from the British 8th Army, and we chit-chatted, and he said everything looked okay. That, what was the British phrase he used? Everything was tuckity-boo. Everything was tuckity-boo.
Tuckity-boo.
Yeah.
That means everything's okay.
That's right, yeah.
Tuckity-boo. That's interesting.
So I turned around and went back and reported what I'd found, and we got orders from Third Army to stay where we were and wait for further orders. And about a couple of days later, we were told to pull out, move up into southern Germany, near Kempten, where we went on occupation duty.
Kempten?
Yeah.
Where's that?
It's in the Zilla Valley. It's about approximately 40 or 50 miles northwest of Garmisch.
Oh, 40 to 50 miles northwest
Of Garmisch.
of Garmisch. So you're what? Towards what? Augsburg? Ulm?
No,
How's my geography?
Ulm is further north.
Okay.
You know where Memmingen is?
No, I don't, but I... Anyhow, that pins it down. That's fine. 40, 50 miles northwest of Garmisch-Partenkirchen.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And actually, a very short distance from King Ludwig's castle.
Ah, okay.
In fact, I ended up being responsible for all the art and loot that had been Goering had brought up from Germany, from Italy, and put in that castle.
Wait a minute. Is it... I guess isn't that northeast
Well,
rather than northwest?
well, the castle was due south of us.
Okay. I'm getting confused in my geography. Okay, it's not that big. You got Garmisch-Partenkirchen, and due north of there is Munich,
Yeah,
and then due
northwest.
north. Okay,
Yeah.
north and
Yeah.
to the east is Berchtesgaden and
To the south.
Chiemsee, or I guess maybe it's more south.
Yeah.
Chiemsee
Yeah.
and
It's
Berchtesgaden.
south from where we were. Kempten is an old Roman town.
Oh, that right?
It's a German contraction of Camp Town. It's a town that was established by the Romans when they came galloping through that area.
Okay. So you're there, and you're part of the occupation force,
yeah.
and we're now in...
This is in
June now, maybe?
This is going into July.
Okay,
Yeah.
July 45.
Yeah, and my headquarters is in the town of Heising. The chief thing there was a big cheese factory, which we took over as both a combination CP and barracks. Got a big share of the cheese product, which was excellent particular cheese. The French make it too.
Camembert?
Camembert, right.
Camembert.
Right. And this is getting into the middle of July, and then the redeployment started.
You know, people start sending people home.
Yeah.
Okay.
And all of us, it was on a point system.
Right.
And all of the high pointers of the 80th Division were transferred to the 10th Armored Division, which was designated the carrier division to take the troops home.
Okay. Excuse me, one question here. Did the point system apply to officers as well as enlisted personnel?
Yes, yeah.
In the same way, more or less?
Yeah.
Okay.
Combination of time spent in combat, decorations,
Okay.
and
And regular officers and reserve officers also applied the same way.
Yeah.
In other words, as a regular officer, they wouldn't say you. Oh,
No, the regular,
Colonel,
regular officers like me were earmarked for occupation duty. Regardless of what happened in the division, we were going to stay in Europe.
Oh, okay. So you were treated differently
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
Okay. In other words, you were expected to stay, even if like a reserve officer would
Reserve,
go home.
Reserves go home, yeah.
Right. Okay. Okay. So anyhow, what happened to you personally? When the redeployment began.
Well, first of all, we were picking up replacements from the 16th Armored Division, which was a late-comer division. I only got in about 1 month of combat. They were going to be deactivated in Europe, and their people were being used as fillers for the 80th Division, which at that time had been earmarked for occupation duty.
Okay.
And all the high pointers of the 80th Division are being transferred to the 10th Armored Division to be sent home to be deactivated.
Okay.
And then in September of 45, the 80th Division was ordered to Czechoslovakia for occupation duty, in western Czechoslovakia.
Okay.
And the division headquarters was located in I'm trying to think of that city.
Germany?
No, Czechoslovakia.
Oh, in Czechoslovakia. I don't know.
The Czechs call it Mariánska Lázně, the Germans call it Marienbad.
Okay.
And I was...
You're still with the 80th?
That's right.
You are, personally.
Yeah, my battalion was assigned to the city of Osh, which is up at that point in Czechoslovakia where Germany, Czechoslovakia, and Poland come together.
Is this the Sudetenland?
Not Sudan. It's the industrial center of Czechoslovakia. It may be on the fringes of Sudetenland, but
okay.
It's a big industrial city. And I was responsible for running that city. And then...
You were like a military mayor, you might say, of the city?
Military governor.
You were the military governor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Then, in Thanksgiving of 45, because I was earmarked for occupation duty, I was given 30 days leave, rest and recuperation, to go home.
Right.
And come back. And while I was home...
Was that you were pretty excited about that, were you? I mean, you were pretty darn happy, I should imagine.
Well, see my parents and family.
Sure.
And while I was home, the American forces were ordered out of Slovakia, because that was Russian territory for occupation. And when the 80th pulled out of Czechoslovakia back to Germany, it was designated to be sent home for deactivation because they had a surplus of divisions over there.
Yes.
And by this time, hardly any of the staff, the officers as I knew, were in the battalion. In fact, Dick Wilmer was the guy who the memorial service this morning.
No, sir, I didn't know.
Well, he was here last night. He was my S3 and chief of the Fire Direction Center, but he ended up by being the senior officer to bring the battalion home to the States.
The 314?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
And as I told you last night, the division was deactivated at Camp Kilmer. And I was home. I came back down from Lawrence, Mass. to be there for the deactivation and see most of my soldiers who were left of them for the first time. Most of the people in the battalion then were strangers to me.
Okay. You were on leave at the time.
Yeah.
Now, I'm again, as I mentioned earlier on, and when we started the interview, the focus is a little more on the human side as opposed to the military side.
Correct. Yeah.
You know, who you know, and I'm thinking this is insight to me. I think in that you're on leave and you're taking your leave time to go down to Camp Kilmer, New York, to see the
New Jersey.
I'm sorry, excuse me, New Jersey, to see the unit deactivated.
Yeah.
So does that tell me that there's a certain pretty powerful affection that you have here for the 314th Field Artillery
definitely, yeah.
and the 80th Division?
Yeah. Yeah, I was in on the activation and on the deactivation.
That's right from the get-go right to the very end.
Right, yeah.
Has the 80th ever been reactivated, by the way?
It was
Since
World
War II?
It was back in 1946. Was reactivated as a reserve division, initially as an airborne division, designated as a reserve airborne division. Then it was deactivated, and then has been reactivated as a training division. The mission of a training division, if there was another war occurred, it would establish a training center.
Is there anybody, today, today, is there actually anybody assigned to the 80th Division right now?
The so-called 80th now. Yeah,
but there is one. It
Yeah.
just has, a handful of, administrative staff somewhere?
No, it's just a reserve. It's made up of reservists.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, where is it headquartered?
The headquarters is in capital of Virginia.
Richmond.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So this shows a lot of personal affection for the battalion and the division. At that time, was this kind of a trauma for you personally? I don't. Trauma is maybe a
No, well, it was just
emotional. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
Very emotional event for you.
Yeah.
Was it okay? Was it? It probably wasn't so emotional when you left Germany, because at that time you figured you were coming back in 30 days. So that was okay.
Yeah.
Let me, if I may, the 80th is now defunct. That's the wrong word. Sorry. Deactivated at Camp Kilmer, New Jersey.
Yeah.
So now, if we look back during the war, what kind of relationship did you have with civilians in Europe that might be of note? Civilians in Great Britain, perhaps in England, or in France, German civilians, Austrian civilians, Czech civilians, Italians. You were in Italy, right?
Yeah. Well, I had contact with a lot of Germans during occupation after I went back to Europe. During the war, not too much with a lot of French civilians, but not in the towns we captured and liberated. I remember one experience in Alsace-Lorraine, which has changed hands so many times.
Right.
Germans who speak only French, and French speak only German.
Right.
And I'll never forget this particular day. It was up toward going through this town called Vermont. Things were moving fast, and we'd taken over this Gasthaus as a battalion command post. It was about noon, and I was talking to my staff officer about our next operation, expecting we'd have to displace and get gun positions before darkness and get a registration fired.
Right.
And while I was talking to them, this little wizened old guy came up out of the cellar from nowhere holding this glass of something violet in color and offered it to me. He had a big grin on his face, and I accepted it in the spirit and offered. Looking at it, I could see the glass hadn't been washed out since Napoleon went through there. I figured what was in the glass would take care of that.
Plum brandy.
Yeah, plum brandy.
Yep.
Almost knocked my head off after I took a sip of it. And I was yakking to him, and then to my officers, and all of a sudden I took a second look, and I said to this guy, "Now look, you see your name is Domera, and all you're doing is talking to me in German. What are you?" And he says, "Oh, no, Colonel, I was like this. I was born in this house. I've lived in this house all my life. When I was a boy, the Prussian War, the Germans won, they moved the boundary this way, I became German.
German.
And on came 1914, the Allies won, They moved the boundary back. It became French again. When it came 1940, Hitler took over, moved in, they moved the boundary back. It became German again. Now I don't know what I am. You here, I guess I'm American.
That's interesting. That's pretty neat. So what else it comes to mind with regard to your relationship with civilians? Does anything pop out as noteworthy as you went through Germany and Italy, Czechoslovakia, wherever?
When we got into the Third Army headquarters, to which I was reassigned, was in Heidelberg, and because Heidelberg was a hospital city and declared an open city during the war, so nothing happened there. But when the SS were pulling out for some stupid reason, they blew that old historic bridge across the Neckar leading into the town, and we were in the process of allowing them to rebuild ancient monuments, and we gave them permission to rebuild this bridge. It was quite interesting how they did it. The center span had been blown. They replaced it with a reinforced concrete arch. Then they went down into the river and picked up all this red sandstone and surfaced the new concrete arch with this original red sandstone that the bridge had been made of.
Huh. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. What what in general, how would you generally characterize your attitude, your personal attitude, and the attitude of the men in your battalion and others in the division, the soldiers that you knew personally? How would you generally characterize your attitude and their attitude towards, say, the German people? I mean, how were they looked at as evil people, or were they looked at as just people like you and me who happened to get caught up in this big monster thing, which was World War II?
We looked at them as victims of circumstance.
Okay.
We keep saying, well, maybe the same thing could happen in our country someday. We think it can't, but they didn't think it would happen in their country either.
Uh-huh.
When a fanatical politician takes over, he's a great charmer.
Right.
And I talk to a lot of people of my age about what was going on. Because I had been, and I forgot to tell you, after West Point, in those days we got 2 months leave before going to our first assignment.
Right.
I and two classmates made a tour of Europe.
Oh, wow.
Ireland, England, in France, and went through Germany. Saw what was going on there, and but didn't suspect it was going to happen so soon. And got down into Vienna. And while in Germany, we picked up this outfit called Fremdendienst, a tourist service that sort of guided us around, make sure we saw the right things and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went back up to, we were on our way up to Denmark, and we stopped off in Berlin. And interesting enough, it was 5 o'clock. They were having a practice air raid. And
this is where now? In Berlin?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is in August of 39.
Okay.
They're having a practice air raid. Boy, they really practice. Just going home to traffic time, but they stopped everything. Everybody, including us, was ordered down to the subways and to the all clear whistle blew.
So this is days before they went into Poland, then?
That's right, yeah. And the other interesting thing I forgot to mention was before we went over, we had written to the American military attaché in Berlin to see if we could get permission to go visit the German Kriegsschule, which is just a short distance outside of Berlin.
What is?
Kriegschule.
Kriegschule.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, Kriegschule, the war school.
well, yeah, I was going to say
Yeah.
war school. Yeah. Okay.
And he wrote back saying he arranged it. We would have to bring our uniforms. We were required to wear for that occasion. So we had to lug our uniforms all over Europe until we got there for this specific occasion.
Okay.
And when we got there, we were given quite a reception. We were invited to have lunch with the commandant, and who his name at that time was Rittmeister von Oliphant. Rittmeister means a cavalry instructor.
Okay.
And